don't learn this information in this dojo, do we? You don't tolerate poor technique in this dojo, do we? You don't act without reason in this dojo, do we? You don't repot out of season in this dojo, do we? What's up guys, and welcome back to the Bonsai-En YouTube channel. I'm Josh, and today I'm not going to be your teacher. I'm going to be your sensei. Sorry, I had to say that, but I'm a big fan of the Cobra Kai series, and I'm guessing you are because you've landed on this video. But today, what I'm going to do is show you how to take nursery stock like this and turn it into one of the bonsais that you may have seen Daniel Larusso working on in the Cobra Kai series. So stick around. Alright, so now that we've got all that fun out of the way from our intro, I'm going to be showing you how to take this juniper nursery stock and turn it into a tree similar that you might have seen in the Karate Kid movies or in the Cobra Kai series. Now, a lot of the trees that they used in those movies and in the TV series, they are Juniper Bonsai. Now, Juniper Bonsai are a very hardy tree, but the main reason that they probably would have used them in the series is because they are one of the quickest bonsai to make. Because their foliage is so tight and compact, you can actually build it out to look like a traditional bonsai very quickly. Now, as you can see, this one just here that I've got, I'll give it a spin, is just nursery stock that's still growing. Now, a bit of advice that I will give you before we start, if you buy something that looks more like this, okay, this little guy here, same tree but a lot smaller. If you want this guy to look like that, you need to keep growing it on in a black plastic pot, okay? So don't buy one of these, bring it home, put it straight into a bonsai pot if your goal is to get something a little bit bigger like this guy here. Because this growing pot and the medium inside this growing pot is what allows us to get it thicker like this. Once we move it into the bonsai pot and into a different growing medium, okay, into an inorganic soil, the growth of the tree really slows right down. So just as long as you've got that in mind before we start, if you buy something small and put this in a bonsai pot, it's going to stay like this. If you want it to grow on like this, then you need to keep it in the black plastic pot. You make them bigger as you go on. We slip pot them, okay? So from this little pot, we'll go into a pot that's in between the size of these two, grow it on a bit more, and then it'll get slip potted up into a pot this size. Now, with this tree here, now I've got to be a little bit careful when I teach these kinds of lessons, okay, because there's the two different types of bonsai that get practiced out there, okay? So there's just the hobbyists that will do basically just anything, okay? They're not really looking to get that top quality bonsai. They just want something little to play around with and don't really care too much about the technicalities of it, okay? And then there's those of us who are enthusiasts or professionals or any of those upper kind of levels, okay? And the only reason I say upper kind of levels is because those kinds of people, they look into bonsai a lot more and they practice it a lot more seriously. So they'll fertilize properly, they'll follow all the horticulture properly, they'll follow proper aesthetics in, you know, bonsai design. That includes the kind of pot that we choose. And also, basically they'll just do everything by the book. So I've got to be careful in a lesson like this not to freak people out too much with too much information, but to also start you off on the right foot. That's what we do here at Bonsai, and we like to give correct information and start you off down the right road. So we're going to try and keep it simple, but we're also going to try and teach you properly. So the reason that I brought that up is what we don't really want to do in bonsai is too much at once, okay? So we don't want to really cut a tree a lot and then put it in a bonsai pot because we're doing too much work there. So what we're going to do today, I've got this particular tree here. Now, as you can see, once again, this is just nursery stock. This was just pulled straight out of a bonsai nursery, okay? This has just been grown. There's no wire on this tree. It hasn't been shaped. But this is a good shape to begin with. So what we're going to do today is show you how to get this into a bonsai pot. but we're not going to do a whole lot of styling or wiring or anything on this tree, okay? Now, in basic terms, the reason that we're not going to do that is because all the energy in this tree is in the foliage, okay? And once we put this, cut a bit of this tree's root system and put it into a bonsai pot, we're going to be relying on this energy in here to regrow that root system, okay? Now, there is a technicality behind this. We have hormones called auxin and cytokinin, but we're not going to go in depth with that stuff in this lesson. But just let it be known, basically, that we don't want to be cutting the foliage and the roots at the same time, okay? We want to harness the power that's in the foliage to regrow our root system. Now, let me also point out that this isn't true for all trees, okay? But juniper, this is especially true. So what we're going to do today is just get this into a bonsai pot and get it on its journey, okay? And then if you follow along, then next year you can style the tree after it's been potted up. Okay, so let's get going on getting this into a bonsai pot. So the first thing we're going to do is get it out of this pot. Now it's probably going to be really tight in there, okay, you'll notice that. So one of the best things that we can do is just give the sides of our container a real good squeeze, okay. Loosen up that soil around the walls of the container and down the bottom. And now I do know with this particular tree, it's grown so vigorously that the roots have come out the bottom here, okay? And it's actually broken the bottom of the pot. So that's going to make it a little bit tougher to get it out. But now that we've, pushed in the side walls and loosened it up off the side of the container a bit, you can get a good firm grip on your trunk and just give the side of the pot a bit of a whack, and that should loosen it up. There we go. And out it comes. Now don't worry about all that stuff that's just fallen off the surface there. That's just all the fertilizer that was put on this tree while it was growing. Just a slow release fertilizer, pelletized. So it's going to roll off there anyway. And as you'll see, it doesn't matter that that comes off in a minute, because I'm going to show you how we're going to work this root system down to put it in a bonsai pot that we've chosen, which is this. Chosen, get it? Alright, that was a little bit of an inside joke for those Cobra Kai fans there. Now as you can see, this tree is not going to fit just straight into this bonsai pot. If we put that in there like that, it's going to look a bit funny. So there is some work that's going to have to be done. So let's put our bonsai pot aside for a minute while we get on with that work. Now, just some basic tools for this. I've got a chopstick. I've got this one cut down a little bit more. You can use longer ones if you want. And I've got my root rake. So basically what we're going to do first is we're going to start working down from the top, okay? We don't want to work from the bottom up first. We want to work from the top down first. Now, there's two main reasons why we do this. One is because at the base of this tree, what we call the nabari, where the roots flare out on the tree, okay? We might find a bit more of the tree down under the soil surface, okay? So we don't want to waste that. And two, the roots that are going to be the best applicable to us, okay, and keep this tree moving forward without, much delay in its growth, let's just say, as we put it into the bonsai pot. Because the mindset that we want to have when we work on bonsai, and this is something that most beginners don't get, okay, when they learn bonsai, most teachers don't teach this, but there's this stigma out there that if you've done something, okay, some kind of technique, and the tree survived, that means the technique was okay. But that's completely wrong, okay? In bonsai, we've got to think about it a little bit differently. We want to be able to do the techniques as properly and efficiently as possible, because we don't want to slow the tree down. Once we get it into the bonsai pot, we want it to recover as quickly as possible and continue on, okay? If we did this the wrong way, the tree could spend a whole growing season, which is 9 months here in Australia, just trying to recover that root system. But if we play our cards right and do our techniques properly, we might only spend, within 2 weeks, we're going to start growing new roots. and within maybe a month and a half, we're going to be back to where we were before we potted it up, okay? And then we can continue growing our foliage and everything else that the tree needs to do. So we just need to be in that mindset that just because the tree survived doing poor technique, it doesn't mean it was correct. So the reason why I explained that to you is the second reason why we work from the top down is because probably about here in our soil system in the middle is where our best roots are going to be, okay? We're not going to have our best roots at the top of the soil surface because this is where the tree dries out quite a lot and the quickest, okay? It gets overexposed to oxygen here, so the roots don't necessarily grow right up into this area. So our good roots are probably going to start right about here. And then same in the bottom, okay? They're probably going to be overexposed to water down in this area, a little bit overexposed to oxygen. So coming back up a little bit, you know, in this section here is probably where our best roots are going to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to start working back the soil system from the top first, and then we're going to work our way down until we hit a certain point, okay? We've either find a good base of our tree or we find some good roots, and then we'll start working from the bottom up from there. So what I'll do now is I'll bring the camera in nice and close to the top of this soil surface here, and we'll start working the soil back and see what we find. Alright, so we're in nice and close now on the root system, so we're just going to start working from the inside of the trunk to out, okay? And I suggest before using a root rake, okay, this is quite abrasive. So this is more or less for trees that are really root bound, and I've got it just in case for this tree because the soil does look fairly compacted, and also it's been in that growing container for a while. So I've got this just in case, but if you can get away with using a chopstick, which is less abrasive to the roots, then definitely do so. But if it's a lot tougher than the chopstick can handle, then you can bring out the big guns. So as you can see, I'm just going to work from the trunk out, okay? I'm just going to slowly start removing soil. And we've got to keep in mind too that we're going to have to reduce the width of this soil surface as well to fit it into the bonsai pot. So even though the bottom fit in, these containers taper out, so the top's definitely not going to fit into the container, into the bonsai pot, sorry. But also too, if we were looking at the side of our bonsai pot like this, the view that you're looking at now, so if this was the front of the tree, this was the back, okay? Well, this was the back, sorry. And you were looking side on. What you wouldn't want is your tree sitting all the way at the front of the bonsai pot like this. So we're going to have to reduce this mass at the back. That way we can push the tree back some in the bonsai pot. So we're just going to keep working this soil out here a little bit, okay? And seeing what we've got. Now this is really a game of patience, okay? We don't want to be just ripping into this root system because once again, as I mentioned before, when we're potting up a bonsai tree like this into refinement, okay, we're going out of the development stage of growing into the refinement stage, into the bonsai pot, okay, potting up into refinement. We want the time that the tree slows down to recover, we want that window to be as minimal as possible, okay? And this particular work that I'm doing right here should be done, okay, early spring, just before summer, okay? Within that window is your best time to do this work. You don't want to be doing this, especially as a beginner, you don't want to be doing this during summertime because if you cut the root system, okay, which is the tree's source of replacing moisture within the foliage up here. So the tree sweats very much like a human. We call it transpiration. Okay, so in the heat, the foliage loses moisture, and then the tree has to replace that moisture up through the trunk out of the root system. Now, if you've cut your root system, you've now, taking away 50% of its ability, let's just say, to replace that water, so you've slowed that process down. So you don't want to be doing that in a time of year where that water movement is at its highest, okay? And where it's most important for the tree, because in summer, it's losing a lot of water out of the foliage. You need that root system to be at the top of its game to be able to replace that water straight away. Otherwise, what you're going to see is the tree slowly die back from the tips, okay? And then once that happens, you've lost your juniper, basically. So we want to do this in spring, okay, for 2 reasons. While the weather's still cool-ish, okay, and it's warm-ish, it's not hot and it's not cold, it's in between winter and summer, okay? It's in between those 2 extremes. But also too, in spring, that's the time of year where the tree's going to most quickly recover its root system, okay? It's got the best ability to recover that root system the quickest, okay? And like we spoke about before, we want to do everything as quickly and efficiently as possible so we minimize the downtime of the tree. So we're just going to keep working away at the root system here. So as you can see, this is the technique that I'm doing from the top, just working it back, okay? And if we come around to this side of the tree here, try not to block your view. And just slowly work this all back. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through and I'm going to finish working this down, to about here somewhere where you can see our chopstick right at the bottom of the screen there. We'll come back and we'll have a look at what we've got and have another little bit of a discussion. But I'll do this off camera because it's probably going to take me a good 10 minutes or so, and you're probably not going to want to sit there and watch me just scrape away the soil surface that whole time. I've explained everything that I need to explain to you about this section, so I'll go ahead and do it and then we'll come back. Alright, so as you can see, we've worked some of the soil out of the top. Okay, we've got our roots exposed up here. There's not a lot up here that's super useful, okay? There are some roots that are, a little bit useful to us, but we've worked away that top matter of the tree. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start working on the bottom and working our way up. So I'll reposition the camera into a position where you can see the bottom better, and we'll start working our way up and see if we can reduce this root mass down into something that's going to be useful in a bonsai pot. Alright, so what you're looking at here is the very bottom of the root mass. So we need to start working this back a little bit. That way we can start to reduce the root mass. Now, a lot of this will probably be some unusable roots plus a lot of soil mass. So we'll loosen it up and see what we've got to work with in there. Now, we're just going to do the same thing that we did on the soil surface, just start working our way out, okay? Pulling out any of that loose soil that might be in there with our chopstick. You don't want to come straight in with your root rake and being too abrasive, okay? Wherever we can, we just, want to be nice and delicate. Now, you can see down the bottom here, you can see these roots, how they're much lighter coloured than what we had at the top. These are much more useful roots to us, okay? So they're a lot younger, they're going to be a lot better at taking up water and nutrients, okay, and a lot less spent than those roots that we've seen up the top of the root ball, okay? So that's why we want to try and get more or less into the middle of this root mass, working down from the top first and then from the bottom second, reducing, until we can get to a section of the root mass that's going to be best applicable to us. It's going to not put us behind as much, and they're going to regrow a lot quicker. So we're just going to keep working back. We've got quite a large root that's grown down the side of the pot here. Okay, you can probably see it just there. It's grown down the side and then run along the bottom. So we'll just move that out of the way for a minute. And we're going to keep working this center back and just see what we have up in the center. And I've just found, right in the middle, a piece of bamboo, okay? So this is something that you'll often see from growers, okay? So the person that originally grew this tree would have put a bamboo stake down through the center of the tree to grow the trunk more upright. And especially with these junipers, okay? If you let these junipers go and just grow on their own accord, they're going to want to grow up out of the soil and then straight down, okay? Because they're a ground cover plant. So they're going to want to come up and then go straight down and run across the ground. So this bamboo stake would have been put in by the nursery grower who originally planted this tree to actually grow the trunk upright so we could get an upright design. So obviously the bamboo stake was taken out some time ago, but this is just some of the bamboo that's been left in the center of this root mass. So let's just keep working this back. Keep reducing. As you can see, there isn't a whole lot of root mass in the center of this, okay? Now keep this in mind, because when I go to put this in the bonsai pot, I'm going to explain something very important to you, okay? And it's got to do with this particular growing medium, okay? And what I'm going to explain to you is not having a lot of root mass in the middle and a lot of your root mass on the outside. So just store that for now in your mind, and then we'll re-talk about it once we're putting this in the bonsai pot with the new soil, because it's very, very important what I'm going to explain to you. And you're going to hear a lot of people out there in the world of bonsai on internet pages and forums and stuff like that, especially on Facebook, that'll tell you it doesn't matter what you grow the tree in, it's going to grow in anything. But there really is an important difference between the soils, and I'll explain that to you. But at least right now you're getting to see firsthand how there's not much root mass in the center and there's more root mass on the outside, and I'll explain that further into this video. So stick around and keep watching, because it's probably going to be one of the most important things that you learn out of this video, especially if you're going to want to go forward and do bonsai a lot more seriously. Alright, so we're starting to work a lot of this soil out. So once again, I'm going to stop recording, I'm going to work this back a little bit more, and then we'll come back, show you what we've got and have a little bit more of a discussion. Okay, so we've worked the bottom of the root ball up, so now we've got the top of our root ball and the bottom of our root ball. Okay, right in this little section, that's our root ball. So, we're getting closer to being able to be in the bonsai pot, and so far at this point, I have not removed a single root on this tree, okay? So, we've got some of the roots still laying out here on the side, okay? But I've got them sitting flat, but most of what we've removed is soil. Now, the next thing we need to do, we've still got this, the front of the tree still going to sit at the bonsai pot, and we've still got this big massive root ball at the back here that we need to reduce back. So we're just going to slowly start to try and work this soil mass out a little bit here so that we can fit the root ball into the bonsai pot properly. And then what we're going to do is take a quick look at how we need to prepare our bonsai pot, the soil that we're going to use, and how we get this tree properly into that bonsai pot. So what I'm going to do is quickly just work this root ball back the rest of the way to what I need. We'll come back, have another quick discussion, and then take a look at the bonsai pot from there. But this is basically what we've worked down to so far from, what we started with. Alright, so now we've got our bonsai pot here. Now just a quick comment on why I picked this particular bonsai pot. Now, there's a few basic things. You might think, well, why didn't you pick one of those pots with the pretty colours like we always see, the glazed pots? well, generally in bonsai, in traditional bonsai anyway, your conifers, so things like your pines and your junipers, will generally go in earthy toned coloured pots, unglazed. And this particular tree, it's got quite a rough bark on it, so I went for more of a masculine design tree, you know, really short feet, really sharp edges, rectangle shaped, and all that kind of stuff. So that's just a quick tidbit on why I chose this pot. Now we need to prep it for putting the bonsai in. So what I mean by that, you'll see in here we have some drainage holes, okay, and they're very, very important. Now I'm just going to lean over here and grab some wire so that we can put our potting mesh in. I should have grabbed that before I started. So I've just got some bonsai wire here and my wire cutters. Now these are special bonsai wire cutters. Alright, so I've just cut 2 little bits of wire, and what I'm going to do is I've pre-cut some bonsai mesh here. We sell this at Bonsai-En in big sheets, okay? But I've just pre-cut some for the video here, just for the ease of doing the video. And then what I'm going to do is get my bonsai wire and put it over the hole. And I'm just going to roughly measure with my finger and bend just there, okay? And then same on this side with my thumb. I'm going to put it at the edge of the hole and bend. And that should roughly give me the size of the hole, okay, in a little U shape like that. And then we're just going to put that through our mesh, like so. Okay, so that's just through our mesh. And then we'll put our wire through the hole, okay, like that. And as you can see, the mesh now covers the hole. And if I turn this around, you can now see our wire out, and you can simply just push your wire out like that, okay? So we'll do the other side. Same thing again. Just put our wire over. I'm trying to do this in a way that my hands aren't blocking it, but it's very awkward to do this kind of stuff. Okay, once again, we've got our U shape. Poke that through our mesh. Put that through our hole. As you can see, it covers the hole like that. Turn it around to the other side. And now we can push that out like that. Okay, so that's our drainage mesh. So basically, that allows us to have big drainage holes in our bonsai pot, which is very important. We'll talk about that coming up soon when we put the tree in the pot. So that allows us to have the big drainage holes, but not have our soil fall through the big drainage holes. Okay, we don't want our soil draining out the drainage holes. It also stops little insects from coming in through the bottom of your bonsai pot, insects that may eat the root system of your tree. So that's another bonus. Now, the next thing that we're going to do, you might notice that we've got another 4 holes there, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got holes there. Now what these are tree tie-down holes, okay? So when we put the tree in the bonsai pot, we need to tie it down nice and tight so it doesn't move around in the wind and tear the new root system that's trying to grow. So as you can see on the bottom here, we've got those holes. So I'm just going to turn the pot sideways for a second. I've actually got some pieces of wire pre-cut, okay, to the size I need. And I'm just going to feed them through the bottom, like so, okay, like that. Then we'll push them flat. And then what I generally do when they come out the other side, I push them flat straight against the bottom of the pot like that, run it up against the pot wall and up and over, okay, and that just holds it there until I'm ready to put the tree in and tie it down, okay, like so. And same with the other side. We're just going to push our wire through there. There's really nothing fancy about this work. We're just, you know, putting our wire into the tree here. we're going to push that down like so. Now we're going to sit our pot up and we can put that down like so. Now we've got our pot prepared to put our tree in and our soil in. Now before I go ahead, I just want to quickly make one other point that will help you with you guys. I know I'm not doing it because I'm in the filming studio here at Bonsai-En. We've got a bit different conditions, okay? You can still see that the roots are still very moist. But if you're doing this work outside in the wind, in the breeze, and also on a warmer day, you want to keep a mist bottle handy and keep misting the root system while you've got it exposed, okay? You don't want any of these roots drying out while you've got them out of the pot. So once again, you're working outside in a breeze or in warm weather, just make sure you keep misting the root system, keep it nice and moist, that way none of the root tips dry out and they won't die. But as I said, you can see how moist this root system still is and I can feel it. That's because we're in a controlled studio here at Bonsai-En, so I can get away with that. But I just thought I would mention it to you so you have better success with your bonsai when you come to doing this yourself. Now, we're going to change the camera angle, come in over the top of the bonsai pot. We're going to start putting our soil in. We're going to have another little bit of a discussion about soil. Alright, the fun part, soil. This is the part of bonsai where everybody loves to have a little argument, okay? Everybody argues over what soil to use, what soil not to use, and nobody really has a reason why, which is kind of funny. Everything in bonsai, you really want to know why you're either arguing a point or doing the technique that you're doing. So, remember before when I said to keep in mind about the roots not growing in the middle of the root system when we're working that organic soil out, okay? So, I'm just going to quickly show you here. This is the soil we're going to be using now, okay? People mistake this for little rocks. But this particular mix that I've got here is 1 part akadama, okay? A clay substance from Japan. 1 part pumice, we all know what pumice is, okay? And 1 part kiryu, which is like a volcanic sand, also from Japan. Now, this is what we class as an inorganic material, okay? Now, you could very well classify akadama as an organic material, but we still classify it as inorganic, okay? It does have a cation exchange capacity. It does have an ability to hold nutrients. But for argument's sake in bonsai, we call this mix fully inorganic, okay? Now, the mix that we had in the growing pot, let me just bring some up here. Okay, this mix here, this is what we call organic material, okay? So this is generally things like pine bark and peat, all those kinds of stuff. It's really dense, okay? Holds a ton of nutrients, holds a lot of moisture, and is really good for growing trees, okay? But in the bonsai pot, no good, okay? Steer clear of garden soils in your bonsai pot and just any kind of organic matter within the bonsai pot. And I'm going to explain to you right now why that is. Now, let me just get rid of this inorganic soil here for a minute. You'll notice in our bonsai pot here, and I know it's going to go a little bit blurry because we're getting a little bit too close to the camera. Maybe I'll move it back a little bit for you there. You see how we've got no depth in this, okay? It's very shallow, whereas in our growing container we had a lot of depth. Now, we have something that's called a gravity column, okay? And gravity naturally pulls water through a gravity column, okay? So the taller a pot is, the more gravity that's going to be moving through that pot, pulling the water out. Now in a little bonsai pot like this, a little shallow bonsai pot, we don't have much of a gravity column. Now, couple that with putting a very dense, high moisture retaining mix in here, such as garden soil or any of your organic stuff like that. And what you're going to end up with is a massive amount of water buildup in this bonsai pot, and you're going to stop the roots from growing. Okay, they're not going to grow real well because they're not going to want to grow into a place that has a ton of moisture. Okay, two reasons why roots grow. Okay, well, not two reasons, but two things that make roots grow well is the search for heat, okay, out the side of the wall of a pot. Now that's why in this nursery pot, I know you can't see much of it behind here, but ever wondered why most of our nursery pots are black? Okay, they hold a lot of heat and the roots seek out that heat. And also the reason they're tall is because we can grow more of a root mass in there. Now, the other thing that grows roots really well is the search for moisture. Now, if you've got a ton of moisture just present in the pot all the time, the roots don't have to grow because the moisture is right there for them. And you might think, well, that's a good thing, right? But no, we want our roots to grow because it gets us results on the top of the tree. Now, what generally happens with that organic material is in the very center here, okay? In the very center of your root ball, what's going to happen is no roots are going to grow in that center. They're all going to grow out towards the wall here, trying to find oxygen, okay? Trying to find warmth, and trying to get away from that big, massive moisture in the middle. Now, your tree is actually going to survive, okay? And this is the difference between what I was talking about before, is just because the tree is surviving, it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. What you're going to find is going to happen is, let me just grab the tree here, okay? Let's just sit it in our bonsai pot here, okay? So let's just say in the middle of our root mass here, like right up in the middle here, we've had no roots grow, okay? And let's just pretend this whole pot is full of roots now, okay? We've got a real solid mass of roots, and when we pull it out, we're going to have that rectangle shape on our roots. Now what we do, and here's just a basic lesson on repotting, I'm not going to go too in depth with it, but what we do in bonsai is we generally cut back, okay? We'll cut a little bit off the side of our root mass here, we'll cut a little bit off the front, a little bit off the back, and a little bit off the other side, okay? And a little bit off the bottom. Now what this does is makes room in the bonsai pot on each side of the root mass for the roots to grow a little bit more, because the roots have got to be growing for the tree to be growing, okay? And the tree's got to continue growing to live. So that's why we repot our tree, to free up some room in the bonsai pot, re-allow those roots to continue growing. Now what's going to happen if you've got no roots in the center? You're going to come in, cut back this way, cut back this way, cut back this way, cut back this way, and cut back this way, okay, up into the center. You've essentially just cut all the roots off your tree, and now it's going to die. So I hope you were able to get a little bit of a basic understanding from there. I'm trying not to overcomplicate this lesson, because all we're trying to do is just get you guys started here, okay? But just keep in mind it's really important that we don't use that soil in the bonsai pot. You'll always see people that put it in there and they think that they've won because their tree's surviving. Of course the tree's going to survive, it's in a growing medium. But the difference is we're now practicing bonsai. Life in a little container like this is a lot different to life in a growing container. So, back to our inorganics here. This is what we want to use in a bonsai pot. Very free draining, okay? It's not going to hold on to massive amounts of moisture inside the bonsai pot. Very oxygen rich, okay, which is going to help us grow more and more roots in our bonsai pot. And the other bonus, which is for more advanced people, is it doesn't hold a lot of nutrients, okay? So what this means is we can control the amount of nutrients our tree is getting, which means we can make smaller internodes and smaller growth on our tree, which is what we want in bonsai. But that's our basic little talk on soil. We could go for 2 hours on a soil talk, but right now we're just going to start putting our soil in. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to just put what we call a small drainage layer on the bottom of the pot here, okay, just to cover the bottom of the pot. Now, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to build a little bit of a mound in the middle, Okay, see our little mountain there? And what we're going to do is we're going to bring our tree in, okay? And you might notice that I haven't cut any roots yet. And that's because I'm going to show you guys a little bit of an easier way for you to do this as a beginner. But what I usually do is grab the massive roots, okay? And you guys can't really see here. I know this is terrible. It's going to go blurry. But see how I'm pulling the roots up from the bottom and holding them up around the trunk like that, okay? Because what we're going to do is we're going to put our main soil mass into the container here, and we're going to twist it and we're going to work it down onto that mound, okay? Now I can move all these roots back and we can kind of look at where we want to position our tree. Now I'm going to turn it to me for a second so I can kind of see where I want the tree to be. Alright, and that's kind of the position I want it to be in. So I found my position, I've worked it down onto the mound, okay? So the next thing I want to do is kind of spread these roots out a little bit evenly where I can. Okay? And then I'm going to bring my tie downs in that we put in earlier, okay? I'm just gonna, what you want to do with these tie downs as well is you want to try and move as many roots out of the way as possible. You don't want to be tying these wires down over your roots because you're going to break a lot of roots doing so, okay? Now there is other ways that we do this in the world of bonsai. We put chopsticks in and tie down to the chopsticks. But once again, I'm just trying to show you a really basic way to do this. And then if you decide to keep doing bonsai, you can learn some of the more advanced methods for tying down and all that good stuff. Okay? So we're just going to generally bring these into position. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the camera back a little bit so you can see this a little bit better. Okay, so I've got you a better overall view of the tree here. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to use a couple of little bits of chopstick to help tie down the tree. Now I'm just going to have to get something behind me here so I can cut these chopsticks down a bit because they're going to be excessively long. So we've got that one. I want to use the thickest part of these chopsticks. Alright. There's another one. We'll keep some spares over here just in case. So as you can see, I've got the tree positioned in the pot where I want it. I've positioned it more to this side, okay, because the tree moves this way. If we put it in the middle, it'll move more outside of the composition. So we've moved the trunk this way a little bit, so as it moves that way, it fills out that negative space on that side of the tree. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to use our wire tie downs here. I'm actually going to put a piece of chopstick, okay, up against the root system here. So I'll just turn it that way so you can see it a little bit there, okay. And then I'm going to put my wires and the point where they meet, I'm going to put it over the chopstick, okay. Now, some of the other ways that we can do tie down in bonsai is we can actually drive the chopstick into the side of the soil, okay, and then tie the chopstick down and pull down like that, and that will actually hold the tree down. But what I find is when we're first potting up a tree out of a nursery container into a bonsai container like this, the root system's really loose at this point, and it's really difficult to get a good hold on the root system like that. So we've got to do like I'm doing here, okay? So this is what we call a set of gin pliers in bonsai, okay, super handy tool. What we can do is we can grab our wire here, okay, with our gin pliers, and the first thing I'm going to do is pull, okay, and that takes up all the slack, and then I'm going to twist until our wire actually meets our chopstick here, okay, and we've got a little bit of tension on there, but I don't want to put too much tension on right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around to the other side, around to here, okay, and I just cross them over just to hold for the time being. I'm going to move as many roots out of the way as possible. Okay, I'm just moving the roots out of the way. Sorry that my hands are in the way then. Okay, and then I'm going to lay my chopstick down. Move as many of these roots out of the way as possible on the way to the chopstick. Same on this side. And then we're just going to give it a quick twist. Okay, now these little bits of wire on this side are going to be a bit too long. So I'm just going to grab my wire cutters down here. I'll just get my smaller ones this time. Okay, just cut that excess bit of wire off these, just to make it easier to work with. And then once again, just going to grab my gym pliers. I'm going to grip onto the wire there, like so. I'm going to pull, okay, it takes up the slack. And I'm going to twist. We've got a root that's going to get caught up under there, so I'm just going to move that out of the way. Okay, readjust. Pull and twist, pull and twist, pull and twist. Alright, now we've got a little bit of tension there. Now we can continue to tighten up the two sides, okay? So on this side here, I'm just going to pull and twist again. Alright, that's enough tension for that side. And then this side, I'm just going to put a bit more tension on. Alright, so now you can see when I move the trunk of the tree, the whole pot moves, the root system doesn't move. And this is what we want, because now that the root system's going to have to re-establish itself, the last thing you want is the tree moving around and the root system moving, okay? Because as it puts new little fresh roots out, if the root system moves, the new root could snap, okay, putting your tree behind. And as you can see, with this medium that we're using, it's very loose, okay? So it's not going to support the tree at all. Your wire tie downs are what's going to support your tree. So I'm just going to go through and cut this excess of wire off that's here on each side. Now, as you can see, we've got all this excess rootage hanging over the edge of the pot there. What I'm going to do is grab my root scissors, okay? Alright, so I've got my root scissors, okay? Once again, a special tool for bonsai. These scissors are much shorter than our pruning shears, okay? Because we're working on the roots right in front of us. We don't need real long scissors to get up into foliage. Also too, these guys have a much thicker blade on them, okay? Much thicker blades. Now this is because in our root system we can run into inorganic materials and aggregates such as rocks and stones and those kind of things. So we need a much stronger blade. So you don't want to just use any old scissors. Now the other reason, and I try to explain this a lot to people, is when you buy your scissors, don't buy a cheap set of scissors, okay? You want to buy high quality steel that keeps a really sharp edge for a long time. The reason is when we cut a root, okay, we want to cut that root as cleanly as possible, because if not, if we damage the root as we cut it, it can get all kinds of infections, okay? It takes a long time to heal, and once again, we set the tree back by doing something improper. Okay, think of it like a surgeon, when they make a cut on the human body, they use razor sharp scalpels, which means that when that cut heals, it takes less time to heal and it leaves less of a scar. It's the same with your root system. So don't cheap out on your bonsai tools. Buy really, really high quality tools, okay? You'll hear a lot of people out there, just like the soil, they say, oh, well, any old tools will do. I use scissors out of my kitchen. Okay, don't do that, because you're going to crush the root before you actually cut it. Now, what we're going to go through here and do is some of these bigger, thicker roots, okay, we're not going to need these moving forward. So we're going to go through and we're going to cut back to a point where they have lots of fine little feeder roots on them, okay? We're going to snip them back. And also what this does is this is going to tell the tree to start growing roots again. Because remember, I went over it quickly before, but we've got auxin in our growing tips and cytokinin in our roots. Okay? When we cut our roots and we have an imbalance between cytokinin and auxin, that'll tell the auxin to move back down through the tree and start to grow new roots, okay? Because we've caused that imbalance. So, I'm just going to go through and cut this root system back a little bit, okay? So we can fit it nicely into our bonsai pot here. And also too, we want to cut the roots because when we were working away the roots, we may have torn some. So we want to replace that tear with a nice, precise, sharp cut, okay? Once again, to give our root system the best chance to regrow. Actually, that can probably just sit back in there, leave that uncut. There was no problem in that little section there. Cut that big amount away there. Same with that there and that there. And that, I might leave that because there's nothing wrong with that. Alright. Alright, so now we've cut our root system back. The next step we're going to take here is putting our, oh, just spilled a bit of it there. We're going to put our substrate into our bonsai pot. Now, we're just going to want to put a little bit in it first, okay? Just around the edges here. Get a little bit more here. Put that in there like that. Because now, what we're going to want to do is we're going to work this soil in with our chopstick, okay? Because we're going to want to work this soil into any air pockets that might be in this soil system. Because we always want to keep a balance of water and oxygen. And if we've got air pockets in there, we're going to have too much oxygen and not enough moisture. So we're going to want to use a chopstick to work it in. So I'll bring the camera in closer so you can see that technique up nice and close. Alright, we're in nice and close now. I've got my chopstick. So the first thing that I usually do is I get my branch cutters, okay? And the end of my chopstick, I just kind of taper it off. Okay, create a little point on it. So what that does is that just creates a taper and that helps us get right into all the little air pockets and everything in the soil system. So what we want to do is we drive our chopstick in, okay, until we hit the bottom and then slowly pull it out. A little bit of a time. What that does is that works that soil down into any air pockets, and you can see how much of the soil that we've put in there that we're actually losing, okay? See how it's working down into the roots? So if we work from the center and work back, okay, and work back, so go all the way to the bottom and then slowly come back out to the top. And that's called chopsticking, okay? Super, super important. We don't want to just put the tree straight into the pot and put soil over it because you'll have lots and lots of little air pockets within your soil system and a lot of your root mass will actually die because of that. So just slowly working it in. Making sure we get into all those little gaps. Okay, and you want to make sure you work all the way out to the edge if you know that you had roots out here. Make sure you really get that soil in and under the base of the tree. Okay, make sure there's no big air pockets under there. That's why we do put the mound in there, so we can ensure that the soil gets worked right up into the center mass of the tree. Okay, but we still, as we're chopsticking, we still want to make sure we try and work some of that new soil down into there. Now I can start to feel that all that's nice and filled in now, so we can start to put the rest of our soil into the pot. Now I always just go around and quickly chopstick one more time as I do this, because you've got a lot more weight now on top, and you might find that more of the substrate will fall into other gaps. Okay, so it's just good to do a little bit of extra chopsticking. Just to make sure that substrate's nice and worked in. Alright, we'll go around just one more time. And refill that surface layer. And that's our soil in the bonsai pot. Alright, so now we're all potted up. Just a few quick little last notes here on this tree. So obviously I can't do it in the YouTube studio, but as soon as I take this out of the studio, I'm going to go out and give it a really good watering, okay? Because these inorganic soils, even though we sift them, okay? Even though we sift them, they do have a lot of dust and stuff on them. So we just want to wash that off, okay? So we keep watering the tree until the water runs clear at the bottom of the bonsai pot. So that's one of the first things that'll get done. The other thing is too, with this tree here, I was basically just showing you how to make a little bonsai like you might see in Cobra Kai or the Karate Kid. Now the trees in that movie are really basic, and they're not what you will see in the actual bonsai enthusiast world, okay? So something like this is not really something that I would make for my personal collection. Okay, I would work on this tree more in terms of branching and tapering the trunk and all that kind of stuff before I would pot it up. But this tree was mainly just to get you guys going into the art of bonsai and, you know, get your first tree potted up. You can get the feel for it, and then you can start to learn more about bonsai as you move forward, more about the aesthetics, the traditions, all the soils that we use, watering, all that kind of stuff, okay? But basically that's all this video was. It's just a basic potting up of a juniper. That way you can do your own at home, and you can have a tree like you would see in the Karate Kid or Cobra Kai. Now, if you do want to learn bonsai properly, we have an online bonsai beginners course. I'll leave a link in the description down below. I'll also leave a coupon down there so you can get 10% off if you want to go over and learn a little bit more about bonsai. In that course, we have 4 hours of content going over pruning, watering, wiring, fertilization, pot choice, the styles of bonsai, the different materials you might see, and the basic bonsai tools. Okay, so a lot of value for not much money. Go over there and you're going to be so surprised at how cheap that course is for what you're going to get. And you're going to get an extra 10% off because you watch this video, okay? So go over, check that out at thebonsaidojo.com. That's the name of our online learning platform, The Bonsai Dojo. I'll leave some more links down in the description below to a few of our other resources, including our podcast, our forum, our blog, Okay, that's all going to be down in the description, and if you want a t-shirt like the one that I'm wearing, check out the little bar, the merchandise bar down below this video, and you can pick up your very own bonsai merchandise. But until next time, I hope you've enjoyed this video, learn a thing or two from it, but enjoy your bonsai journey.